My name is Martha Lewis, and I felt I had to write this to you at AgeWise Info. People often ask me how my mother lived past 95 with such grace, and the truth is, it wasn't luck, it was choices. She had habits so unusual, yet so simple, that even doctors nodded in approval. I promise, what I'm about to share is not some miracle pill or secret supplement. It's about 4 foods she never missed a single day of her life. By the time you finish reading, you'll understand why her story can change yours. Subscribe to AgeWise Info. I remember sitting at our old wooden kitchen table when it first hit me. My friends' mothers were slowing down in their 70s, but mine, she was still climbing stairs without support at 85. "Mama," I asked one evening, "how do you still move like that?" She smiled, cutting vegetables with the precision of someone half her age. "You think it's magic?" She chuckled. "It's discipline, child. Nothing more." That word stayed with me. Discipline. She never used words like diet or health trend. Instead, it was routine, respect for food, and a kind of reverence for her own body. Growing up, I'd roll my eyes when she insisted I eat what she ate. "You'll thank me later," she would say. Back then, I wanted burgers and sodas like the other kids. But she always had this quiet confidence, like she knew time would prove her right. One Sunday afternoon, our neighbour stopped by and said, "Martha, your mother is stronger than women 20 years younger. She's carrying groceries by herself while my back is giving up." I laughed, but deep down, I wondered, what was she doing differently? It wasn't just strength. Her skin looked years younger, her mind was sharp, and her energy was infectious. She could still recite hymns without forgetting a single word, while others her age were struggling with memory. "Mama," I pressed again one night, "is it really just the food?" She paused, looked at me, and said, "Food is medicine when you know what you're eating. These 4 things, never skip them. They built me stronger than my years." That was the first time she gave me a glimpse into her secret. But she didn't tell me everything at once. She made me earn it, by observing her, by living alongside her. And each little detail I noticed made me realize she was different, not by chance, but by choice. Looking back, that realization changed me. It wasn't about searching for some miracle cure in a bottle. It was about honoring the little things, the everyday choices that compound into decades of strength. "Your friends will laugh at you now," she told me, "but one day they'll ask you why you don't look your age, and you'll remember this conversation." She was right. Now, when people stop me on the street to ask about my glow or energy, I think of them, and I smile because I know where it all began, the day I realized my mother was different. "Mama, why do you wake up before sunrise every day?" I asked her once when I was a teenager, groggy-eyed, watching her move around the kitchen. She laughed, tying her apron. "Because mornings carry secrets. If you rise late, you miss them." Her mornings were sacred. She never rushed. She'd boil water, hum a hymn, and place her ingredients neatly on the counter, like she was preparing for a ritual. It wasn't about luxury. There was nothing fancy in that kitchen. But the way she handled each thing made it feel holy. One morning I remember watching her peel garlic slowly. "Why so careful?" I asked. She looked at me with that gentle authority she always carried. "Because the hands that cook feed the body, and the body carries the soul. You don't rush the soul." Doctors today talk about mindfulness and stress-free eating. Mama was living it decades before it became trendy. She chewed slowly, she prayed before meals, and she never sat with anger at the table. If the house was tense, she'd wait to serve until peace returned. Her first food of the day wasn't toast or eggs like most of my friends' families. It was a warm broth she brewed herself. She called it her golden start. Sometimes it was made with lentils, sometimes with a light chicken base, but always infused with turmeric, garlic, and black pepper. "These 3, she'd say, keep the fire in your body clean." I didn't realize then that she was basically creating an anti-inflammatory drink every morning. Science caught up later, but Mama already knew. "Doesn't it get boring?" I teased her once. She tapped my forehead and said, "Child, Boring things build strong bones. Exciting things often break them. That line made me laugh then. Now, it makes me cry, because I see how right she was. Her mornings weren't loud, weren't fast, weren't complicated. They were consistent, and that consistency was her quiet superpower. Even on days when she was tired or sad, she never skipped it. Your emotions should not choose your health, she'd remind me. Your health should strengthen your emotions. Years later, when she was in her 90s, a young doctor asked her, "What's your secret, Mom?" She looked at him, smiled, and replied, "It begins before the sun comes up." And I thought to myself, that was her secret morning routine nobody talks about. The first food she swore by was something she called her golden broth. I can still smell it, the gentle steam rising, the colour deep and warm, the taste comforting in a way no restaurant could ever match. "Mama, why this every morning?" I once asked, dipping my spoon as a child. She looked at me and said, "Because strength begins in the gut, and this broth feeds it." Her broth wasn't complicated. A base of lentils or light chicken stock, always turmeric, always garlic, sometimes ginger. She'd add black pepper at the very end, saying, "This little thing helps your body absorb the rest." At the time, I didn't understand that she was essentially following principles of modern nutrition: anti-inflammatory spices, gut-healing base, rich proteins. I just thought it tasted good, but she never missed it. Rain or shine, festival or ordinary Tuesday, her broth was on the table. I remember once when I had the flu. She sat by my bed, feeding me spoonfuls of her golden broth. "Medicine can help," she said, "but this keeps you from breaking down in the first place." Years later, I came across a medical article that said turmeric and black pepper together have properties that fight inflammation, boost immunity, and even help memory. I laughed out loud reading it. Mama had been doing this for decades without ever stepping into a lab. Doctors who visited her in her later years always asked the same thing: "What do you eat daily?" And when she told them about the broth, they nodded with approval. One even said, "If everyone had this habit, we'd see fewer patients here." She also had a ritual around it. She never gulped it down. She sat, sipped slowly, and allowed it to warm her body from within. "Food should not rush through you," she'd say. "It should walk with you." That broth wasn't just food, it was her daily shield. And when I look back now, I realize how much it shaped her longevity. To this day, when I'm sick or weak, I still make her recipe. And when that first spoon touches my lips, it feels like she's still here, reminding me, strength begins in the gut. If you had seen my mother in the kitchen, you'd think she was performing a sacred act, not just cooking. She moved with patience, never rushing, never distracted. "Mama, why do you hum while cooking?" I once teased her. She smiled, stirring the pot. "Because food absorbs the energy around it. If you sing with joy, the body feels it too." Her broth preparation was ritual-like. First, she'd wash the lentils or chicken bones carefully, almost reverently. Then she'd grind fresh turmeric instead of using powdered ones from the store. "Fresh is life," she'd say. "Powder is shadow." The garlic was always crushed by hand, never machine. She said it released a different spirit when done slowly. Science later proved that hand-crushed garlic releases more allicin, one of the healthiest compounds for the heart. But she didn't need science to tell her. She always simmered, never boiled too fast. "Food must learn patience, just like us," she laughed once. The aroma would fill the house, and neighbours sometimes knocked on our door asking what smelled so good. When she served it, she placed it gently, never spilling, and always with a small prayer. "Eat with gratitude," she whispered, "and the food becomes medicine." I didn't understand her devotion then. To me, it was just soup. But as I grew older, I realized her care was the ingredient that no recipe could capture. Even now, when I try to replicate her broth, it never tastes quite the same. Because it wasn't just what she added, it was how she added it. Doctors often talk about stress and digestion. Mama solved it long ago by cooking slowly, eating calmly, and infusing love into every meal. And that, I believe, is why her golden broth wasn't just food, it was healing. One thing my mother never skipped, no matter where she was her handful of seeds. "Mama, why do you always carry that little tin in your purse?" I remember asking when I was about 12. We were at the church picnic, and while everyone else was reaching for cake and fried chicken, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small container of roasted seeds. "These little things," she said, holding them in her palm, "are life. Never underestimate the power of what looks small." She usually ate flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, and sunflower seeds, roasted lightly, never salted too much. Sometimes she'd mix in sesame. Back then, I thought it was just one of her strange habits. Later, I realized she was giving herself protein, good fats, and minerals that kept her joints strong and her skin glowing. She had a saying, "Big strength hides in small packages." When I once caught a cold, she gave me warm water with ground flax and honey. "This will help your throat," she said. It tasted odd, but somehow I did feel better. Doctors who saw her in her 80s were stunned at her bone density. "Your calcium must be excellent," one said. She laughed and replied, "I just eat my seeds." Seeds weren't just food to her, they were ritual. Every morning after her broth, she'd take her tin, pour a handful into her palm, and chew slowly. "Don't swallow fast," she'd tell me. "You chew until the body thanks you." Years later, I read studies about omega-3 in flax and zinc in pumpkin seeds helping immunity. I smiled to myself. Mama had been practicing medicine from her kitchen before the books confirmed it. One day, when I was a teenager embarrassed about her habits, I whispered, "Mama, can't you just eat like everyone else?" She leaned down, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Martha, when you're older, you'll be proud you had a mother who ate seeds instead of sugar." And now, I couldn't be prouder. Those seeds weren't just food, they were her daily armor. When I was young, Mama used to tell stories while she ate her seeds. She said it made the chewing slower, more mindful. One evening, I asked her, "Why do you believe in these so much?" She laughed softly. "Because I saw it with my own eyes." She told me about her grandmother, who lived in a small village with barely any money. They couldn't afford much meat or milk, but every day her grandmother would save seeds from crops, sunflower, sesame, even pumpkin seeds dried in the sun. That woman lived till 102. Her secret, Mama said, was hidden in those tiny seeds. I'll never forget the way Mama's face glowed when she recalled that memory. She had hands strong enough to grind spices even at 90. Her hair, still thick, though it had turned silver, and her laugh, it filled the house. That laugh came from health, child, not from chance. As she chewed, she'd sometimes hand me a few seeds. "Here, eat. You're eating the same thing your great-grandmother ate. It's like touching her life with your tongue." I rolled my eyes then, thinking she was exaggerating. But today, when I share seeds with my children, I say the same line. Because she was right, it does feel like you're carrying on something ancient, something proven by time. Science talks about antioxidants, vitamin E, and minerals. Mama talked about strength, energy, and fire in the bones. Different words, same truth. Once a neighbour mocked her. "Why bother with bird food, Auntie? Eat something real." Mama just smiled and replied, "Birds fly high because of these. Maybe if you ate them, you'd fly longer too." That answer silenced the room. To her, seeds were never just snacks. They were stories, memories, and blessings passed down generations. If there was one thing my mother never let a day pass without, it was a fruit on her plate. Not exotic fruits from faraway lands, not expensive imports, just the simple ones. "Mama, why do you always have an apple or a banana with your meals?" I asked one day when I was craving sweets. She looked at me and said, Because fruit is God's candy, Martha. It gives sweetness without stealing from the body. Her usual choices were apples, bananas, papaya, or oranges, whatever was seasonal. She believed nature knew what the body needed each season. Winter brings citrus because it keeps colds away. Summer gives watermelon to cool you down. Trust the season, and you trust life, she said. I remember one winter evening when I begged her for cake. She handed me an orange instead. I pouted. She peeled it slowly, handed me a slice, and whispered, "This little piece is doing more for you than any cake could." Years later, I learned vitamin C boosts immunity, potassium in bananas keeps the heart strong, papaya helps digestion. Science had fancy explanations. Mama had simple faith. One day, at the doctor's office, the nurse remarked, "Your blood sugar is perfect for your age, ma'am." Mama winked at me and said, "It's because my desserts grow on trees, not in factories." Even in her 90s, she could bite into a crisp apple with strong teeth, something that shocked many. She always said, "Chewing fruits keeps your face young." When I look back now, I realise it wasn't just about vitamins. It was about simplicity, balance, and respecting nature's gifts. I'll never forget the day her doctor leaned back in his chair, almost stunned. Mama was 92 at the time. "Mrs. Lewis," he said, flipping through her test reports, "your results look like someone 30 years younger. What are you eating?" She laughed softly. "Oh, doctor, nothing special. Just broth, seeds, and fruit." The doctor raised his brows. "No supplements? No fancy powders?" She shook her head. "Just what the earth gives me every day." He leaned forward, curious. "Most people your age are on 5 or 6 medications. You take nothing except the occasional pain tablet." "How?" Mama looked at me, then back at him. "Because I respect food as medicine, and I don't eat in anger, hurry, or greed." The doctor chuckled, but I could tell he was impressed. He even wrote a note in her file, "Patient attributes, health to daily simple foods." When we left, I asked her, "Mama, weren't you nervous telling him something so simple?" She laughed. "Why should I be nervous about truth? Truth doesn't need decoration." From that day, I noticed even the doctor started asking her for small tips. Once, he asked, "Should I also eat seeds every day?" Mama replied, "Doctor, you heal with pills, but don't forget the things that heal before pills are needed." That conversation stayed with me because it wasn't just me or the family who admired her. Even trained doctors with years of study saw something undeniable in her habits. And honestly, that was the moment I stopped doubting her ways. If modern medicine nodded at her, then surely she had been right all along. The last of my mother's 4 daily foods was something so simple, so ordinary, that I often overlooked it as a child, an ancient grain. For her, it was usually oats, barley, or millet. "Mama, why not just eat bread like everyone else?" I asked one morning when she served me a steaming bowl of barley porridge instead of toast. She looked at me, spoon in hand, and said, "Because bread today is rushed. These grains take time. Time builds the body differently." Her favourite was barley. She would soak it overnight, cook it slowly in the morning with water and sometimes a splash of milk, and sprinkle it with crushed nuts or honey. It wasn't fancy, but it was filling in a way no store-bought bread could match. She often said, "Grains are the backbone of nations. If you eat the old grains, your body remembers strength." Years later, I realised she had been giving herself fibre, minerals, and slow-releasing energy every single day. While people around her developed sugar spikes and digestion problems, she had steady energy, a clear mind, and a calm rhythm to her health. One day, I remember a cousin teasing her, "Auntie, why don't you eat modern cereal like us?" Mama smiled and replied, "Because my body is not a laboratory experiment, it's a gift, and I feed it what has proven itself for centuries." Even doctors admired her gut health. She rarely complained of constipation or stomach trouble, something so common among the elderly, and she always credited her grains. When I once asked if she ever got bored of it, she leaned close and whispered, "Child, boredom only comes when you seek excitement in food." Excitement should come from living, not eating. That line still gives me chills. Her grains were never about taste alone, they were about grounding, and that grounding carried her through nearly a century of life. Her relationship with food didn't end at breakfast. Every evening she returned to her grains in some way. "Mama, why cook again when you already had it in the morning?" I once asked, as I watched her stir a pot of millet at sunset. She smiled. "Because the body needs steady anchors. Morning grain gives you energy, evening grain gives you rest." She'd often make a soft porridge with barley or oats, sometimes mixing it with warm milk and a touch of cinnamon. It was her comfort food, but it was also functional. "This calms the body," she'd say, "so the mind can sleep without storms." I didn't believe her until I tried it during exam week. One night I was restless and couldn't focus. She handed me a small bowl of her warm grain porridge and told me, "Eat, then read." Within half an hour I felt calmer, sharper, and more able to concentrate. Her ritual wasn't just about food, it was about atmosphere. She dimmed the lights, kept the kitchen quiet, and moved slowly. She believed the body needed cues to prepare for sleep, and food was part of that. When I was older, I read studies about magnesium in whole grains helping with relaxation and better sleep cycles. Once again, Mama had been ahead of her time. Even at 90, she would sit in her armchair, bowl in hand, eating her evening grain slowly. She'd look at me and say, "This is my night prayer in food form." I realized then, she wasn't just feeding her body, she was teaching me a rhythm of life that honored both energy and rest. One of the quirkiest things about my mother was her unusual rule about eating. "Mama, why do you never drink water right after a meal?" I asked her once. She chuckled. "Because the fire in your stomach needs to burn steady. If you pour water on it, you weaken it." As a child, I thought this was just one of her old-fashioned superstitions, but she was serious about it. She always waited at least 30 minutes after eating before sipping water. Another rule, she never combined heavy foods. If she ate grains, she paired them with vegetables or light broth, not with fried meat. "The body doesn't like confusion," she'd say. "It likes order." Her strangest habit was that she never ate when she was upset. If there had been an argument in the house, she'd delay her meal. Once, when I asked why, she said, "Because anger poisons food faster than rot. If my heart is stormy, I wait until it's calm." Decades later, I read about stress hormones like cortisol affecting digestion. It amazed me. Mama had lived that wisdom long before research confirmed it. Even at family gatherings, when people rushed to eat, she paced herself. "Food is not a thief running away," she'd joke. "It will still be there when you slow down." Neighbours found her rules odd. Some laughed, but when she was still climbing stairs at 93, they weren't laughing anymore. Now, when I follow her habits, I realise they weren't quirks. They were quiet sciences she learned from listening to her own body. I'll never forget how the neighbours used to tease my mother. "Mrs. Lewis, always with her seeds and soups," they'd chuckle. "Why don't you just enjoy yourself? Life is short." Mama would smile gently and reply, "That's exactly why I enjoy it slowly." They called her strict, old-fashioned, even boring. When they brought soda, she offered water. When they baked cakes, she peeled fruit. People thought she was missing out. But as years passed, the laughter faded. Neighbours who once teased her began visiting her for advice. "Auntie, how do you keep your knees from aching?" one would ask. Another whispered, "What's your secret for sleeping well at this age?" I remember one woman who used to mock Mama's broth, sitting at our table in tears. Her husband had been diagnosed with diabetes, and she asked Mama for recipes. Mama served her the same golden broth she'd been drinking for 50 years and said, "It's never too late to begin." By the time Mama turned 90, the same people who once mocked her would gather at our gate just to see her walking with that steady stride. They respected her because results don't lie. And Mama never gloated. She never said, "I told you so." Instead, she welcomed them with kindness, offered them food, and reminded them, discipline is love for yourself. It's never punishment. That transformation, from laughter to respect, was one of the most powerful lessons I learned. It taught me that wisdom is often mocked before it's accepted, and my mother carried that wisdom until her very last breath. I remember the day of her 90th birthday as if it were yesterday. The house was filled with family, balloons, and the smell of her favourite broth simmering in the kitchen. People came from near and far, some hadn't seen her in years, and the first words I kept hearing over and over were, "She doesn't look 90. Her skin had hardly a wrinkle compared to others her age. Her back was straight, not hunched. Her teeth were strong. Her hands, though weathered, were steady and firm. "Mama," I teased, "do you realise you look younger than some of my friends?" She laughed, the sound deep and musical. "It's not about looks, child. It's about the body being cared for every day. A tree watered daily looks young even when its roots are old." At that party, a cousin whispered to me, "Is she colouring her hair? Her silver looks too even." I shook my head. Mama never used chemicals. She let her hair age naturally, but somehow it looked like shining threads, not dull at all. One of my friends even said, standing next to her, "I feel older than her." That's when I realised it wasn't only her body, it was her spirit, her glow. She danced a little that night, slowly but with balance and rhythm. My children stared in awe. "Grandma, you're stronger than us," they exclaimed. She smiled and said, "That's because I eat like I respect myself. Doctors often say aging is inevitable." Mama agreed, but she believed how you age depends on the choices you make daily. She wasn't trying to stay young. She was living in such a way that youth clung to her. Even at 90, her posture, her laugh, and her glow made people stop and wonder. And I knew it was all rooted in those simple foods and her discipline with them. It was around her 91st year when we had to take her for a routine checkup. I'll never forget the look on the doctor's face as he scanned her reports. "Mrs. Lewis," he said, flipping through the papers, "your blood pressure is excellent. Your cholesterol is within perfect range. Your bones are strong. Honestly, I'm struggling to believe these numbers belong to someone your age." Mama smiled, almost amused. "Why struggle, doctor? Maybe it is because I listen to food before I listen to cravings." He leaned forward. "What do you mean?" She explained patiently. "I never overfill my plate. I never eat in anger. And I always eat the 4 foods God gave me every day. The body understands simplicity. It rebels against greed." The doctor chuckled. "If my patients followed your rules, I'd have far less work." Later, in the hallway, he turned to me and whispered, "Your mother is living proof of what we preach, but few people practice. She is remarkable." I felt my chest swell with pride, but Mama, as always, took no credit. "It's not me," she said as we walked home. "It's respect for the body. Anyone can do it." That day, science confirmed what my heart already knew. Her way of living wasn't just old-fashioned. It was effective, undeniable, and powerful. "Mama, why don't you ever eat fried food?" I once asked when she politely refused a plate of samosas at a family wedding. She smiled, shaking her head. "Because oil that's angry burns inside you, and I don't invite anger into my stomach." She had rules not just about what to eat, but also what not to eat. She never touched soda. "It's false sweetness," she said. "Anything false poisons truth inside you." She avoided processed meat, packaged snacks, and anything she couldn't recognize as a plant or grain. "If your grandmother wouldn't know it, why should you trust it?" she often said. Neighbours used to bring her cakes, and she'd accept politely, but only take a tiny bite. "Taste, but don't live on it," she explained. Her strictest avoidance was eating late at night. "The body sleeps to repair itself. Don't give it hard work when it should be resting, she warned. One evening, I offered her leftover fried chicken at 9 p.m. She placed her hand gently on mine and said, "Do you want to see me weak tomorrow morning? Because that's what will happen." True enough, she always woke with energy, never sluggish, never groggy. When people asked her secret, she often replied, "I respect what I refuse as much as what I accept." Her discipline in saying no was as important as her daily yes to broth, seeds, fruit, and grains. In her last years, Mama's wisdom became sharper, almost poetic. One afternoon, I sat by her bed and asked, "Mama, if you had to give one final piece of advice about food, what would it be?" She looked at me, eyes soft but strong. "Child, food is not just for the stomach, it is for the soul. Eat with gratitude, and you will live in peace. Eat with greed, and you will live in sickness." I asked her, "Do you ever regret being so strict all your life?" She shook her head slowly. "Do you regret breathing every day? Food is like breath. You do it daily. Why not do it well?" Her words hit me like truth I had been waiting to hear. She also said something that night I'll never forget. "Teach your children that food is love. If they understand this, they will never betray their bodies." The way she said it, I felt she wasn't just speaking to me. She was speaking through me to generations ahead. When she finally passed, it wasn't weakness that took her. It was time. And she went with dignity, her body strong till the very end. And her last whisper to me was, "Remember, food is medicine, but love is the ingredient." Those words echo every time I sit at the table.